I think schools should ditch, and hear me out on this, science and maths. So my logic for this is that when they first decided to set up systems of public schooling, they could only really go off the ideas of like what schools were at the time, and the only time that you would ever come into contact with a school is if you were like Catholic or Jesuit or something like that. And so, you know, they had really high ideals that you would need to study things like biology and chemistry and maths because what you were likely to do was you were likely to go into a monastery where the scientific disciplines, the scientific things that you would study would be biology, chemistry, maths, physics. Yeah. And so like the system of schools that we have set up teach those things as if those things are necessary to be able to live your life. Whereas in the vast majority of cases, that's not the case. So it's one thing to think to yourself that you know a person would when they're studying maths, that they would study things like calculus and quadratic equations, and unless you're going on to study maths or something statistics based at university, you don't need to study that. Like it's an irrelevant thing for you to study. So instead of maths, it's like you ditch maths, and what you have instead of maths is accountancy. Because how many times are you going to need to do your books? How many times are you going to need to be able to budget? How many times are you going to be able to do so many different things that require numeracy skills, but that don't require you to do advanced algebra. You know, you don't. It's not something that you need to study. So it's a bit of a waste of time teaching people that. The same with like physics. Instead of like teaching people physics, teach them DIY. You know, it's because so it's like instead of like if during like one physics class, just one, they had instead of teaching me physics, if instead they had taught me how to change a plug, that's infinitely more useful. I've had to change loads of plugs in my life. It's a bit of a different with me because obviously my undergrad was in biomed, but it's like for most people ditching physics and instead having DIY or a lesson particularly doing DIY like bricklaying or plumbing or something like that would gear people up for their adult life far more than studying something like physics would. It's exactly the same with chemistry. With chemistry, it seems fairly pointless to study it unless you're going to be going on to do it at university. Exactly the same with biology. Instead of studying biology, teach people health. Teach like health as a science instead of biology, because I can guarantee that you will use that far more than you would some lesson about what pond scum do or how cells replicate. That's not useful. How to treat yourself and look after yourself is infinitely more helpful, because you've got to do that every day. It's like I think to myself, like art for instance, instead of art, have painting and decorating, because you're going to have to paint a room far more times than you're going to get the chance to paint a painting. Anyway, my train's here, gotta go.